I don't exactly know really what kind of intro to even give this video. It's going to be more of a rant than anything else. But it's a rant that I feel that God is leading me to go on. So here it is. It's taken a couple days, but I have finally, more or less, cleaned out my YouTube recommendations that are just full of these videos made by the so-called chads and sigma males and all this just garbage about how the dating world is over, how women are evil, and all that kind of thing. And I know I've talked before about struggling with lust, and I think that these things popping up in my recommendations often, for so long, had been the contributing factor to why I was struggling so hard. And I had a friend point out to me that, and they're always picking just the most vile, disgusting thumbnails. And they can be eye-catching, and that's part of the problem. It's so clickbaity. And then the content, it just makes you despair and makes you want to give up on, ever finding the one. And the thing about the enemy and the thing about the struggle with lust is it feeds off of despair and depression. Like, guys who struggle with this, I know you all can attest that the lonelier you feel and the more you feel when the enemy is trying to get that grip on you, that's when you struggle with lust the most, is when you feel lonely and despair the most. And you can always, and really the best thing to do when battling lust is don't battle it, just avoid it. Just completely avoid it altogether. Kill the situation before it happens. Because the enemy, even though the enemy is not stronger than God, and he's definitely not smarter than God, but he is often smarter than us. Don't try to play mind games with the enemy. Just avoid it. The best way to outsmart the enemy is to just do what God says and don't. Just don't do it. When you're tempted to commit a certain sin, just don't do it. And I know it's easier said than done, and that's why Jesus had to die for us on the cross. But my advice to guys out there who are lonely and who are also struggling with lust, but also do desire to find that one, if your intentions are right, if you're genuinely looking for a connection more than you are to, do it. But the best advice I can give you is just avoid these videos that these so-called chads are making, sigma males, talking about how women are evil and feminism and blah, 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 blah. And I know I'm going to get labeled a simp for this, but, these guys are kind of the real simps. Like, they're butthurt because they're lustful. Most of them aren't even Christians, and probably barely conservatives. And I know this is a harsh thing to accuse someone of, but it is true. Like, these guys are only after sex, and they're butthurt because they can't get none of it. So they go on YouTube and talk about how women are evil and how you gotta be this giga chad to get all this attention from women and just a bunch of nonsense like that. And, their standards are stupidly high. And I'm not saying don't have standards. I'm not saying don't compromise in your values. And yes, do find somebody who matches your values and your faith as closely as possible, because somebody having the exact down to the letter beliefs as you, that's not going to happen realistically. But the best thing you can do to help find the one is as much as you can, try to avoid advice, dating advice on YouTube, because even with a lot of Christian centered advice videos on dating, you're just not encouraged. Oftentimes you'll find yourself more despaired, more lonely and lustful than you were before you watched it. I'm not saying that's the case with all Christian videos. Some of them are helpful and encouraging, but some just leave you confused and despaired because they tell you to hold someone to an impossible standard. But when you're entering in a relationship with someone, you got to accept that this person is going to have flaws. They're going to have things that they're going to struggle with maybe the rest of their lives. And you just got to find somebody whose struggles are as ungodly as possible. But these Giga Chads, or the so-called Giga Chads, who think they have it all figured out, who are, calling guys who actually want to find a connection simps, and talking about how marriage is a trap and not worth it. Like, don't listen to these guys. They're just butthurt because they feel like the system has failed them. And let me tell you guys something. Feminism doesn't exist because women are evil, okay? Feminism exists because men have failed women. We have failed to be, worthy of submitting to. We have failed to be worthy of even, some of us, of even committing to, because for so long men have just focused on getting sex. Like, that's all men have cared about for about a generation. That's why there's so many people, so many kids nowadays are fatherless, because as soon as the woman got pregnant, they left. Like, that's why feminism exists, because men have failed to actually be men, and now we're paying the price for it. But not all women are like that. Like, these chads that talk about how, oh, if you approach a woman in public, she'll call the cops on you. She'll label you a misogynist. You're gonna get this feminist craze going in your life. Like, no, that's probably not going to be the case. I've asked out girls in public, and even though I've gotten rejected, it wasn't that bad. It was usually just a simple no, and sometimes they even added a sorry to it for whatever it was worth. And my confidence has gotten so low because of these people. That's why I think that I stayed so lustful for so long, was because I was in despair and what just wasn't encouraged, and because I was lonely. But as lustful as I was, my confidence levels were so low that recently, when I saw somebody who I thought might be nice, all I had to do was, ask for their number. Like, that's it. Should have just walked up and said, hey, can I get your number? Like, that's it. That's all I would have had to do. That's all I would have had to do. But I didn't do it. Even though I've done it before and faced rejection before. And that's the thing about rejection, is it does hurt. I've dealt with 2 recent rejections that hurt pretty bad, because I did develop a bond with those 2. And if either you 2 are watching, there's no hard feelings. I promise. There's no hard feelings. But that's my opinion on Giga Chads and Sigma males. They're just lustful and lonely, and they're butthurt because they can't get none, and they don't know how to go about relationships in the godly way. And as a Christian, you ought not take advice from these people, because a lot of their advice is unbiblical anyway, and 2, because when you watch videos like theirs, you're just not encouraged. You're not going to be encouraged. You're just going to fall deeper into despair. And when you fall deeper into despair, and you're going to feel a lot lonelier, and lusting and committing lustful acts, it's going to feel a whole lot more tempting. And so it's best to just run for it. I mean, run from it, which is why I've started deleting and pressing the don't recommend button on so many of their videos. And it's taken such a long time. Like, I don't know why I got so many of those videos in my recommendations. Because I look up one video about something specific, and then next thing I know, like, my recommendations explode with this stuff. And some of the specific topics that they talk about, like, it had nothing to do with my original search anyway. And it's taken a while. It's taken a couple days, but I've finally more or less cleaned it out. And now when I do find one, just pressing don't recommend has become second nature. And it's through Christ who strengthens me. It's not through my own strength. But that's my best advice on battling lust is, first of all, avoid anything on the internet that's graphic, but also avoid these so-called relationship coaches or advice givers on YouTube who are only going to cause you to despair, and that's only going to tempt you further. See, the temptation to lust is so much more than just images that you see. It's also words that you hear. Stuff that you hear has just as much an effect. Which is why, Christ warns us not only to be careful of what we see, but also of what we're hearing. And to make sure to hear his word and what he has to say about it. And as far as relationships, I might cover more of his word on that in another video. But for now, this is my advice on, how to avoid even getting tempted to lust and commit lustful acts. And it's also my thoughts on so-called giga chads and sigma males. My advice is, don't be a chad. Just be a man. There is a difference. Just be a man. And if you're out there and you're a so-called sigma male or chad making those videos, I'm not condemning you. I'm not. But you need to wake up and you need to man up. Feminism does not exist because women are evil. It exists because men have failed to be men. And no matter who you are, no matter what you have done, God can forgive any sin you've ever committed if you will repent. That is to change your mind about God and about your own righteousness, realizing that you have none, and then placing your trust in the righteousness that Christ died to credit you with, because Christ died to take the punishment that you deserve. And he rose from the dead on the third day because you were credited with his righteousness. And as he rose from the dead, so you rose with him as righteous. Not because you are righteous, but because Christ imparted his righteousness into you. I hope you come to accept that. I hope you come to realize that. I just hope you come to Christ. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching and bearing with me through this rant. God bless you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video, God be willing.